Okay, so I'm going to go over the homework. This is homework 6, linear and absolute value equations. So I'm just going to do a select few problems from the homework. 2, 4, 10, 12, 18, and 20. So in 2, fairly straightforward. We're going to distribute this -2 to both terms, and we're going to multiply both sides by 8 over 1. So we can cancel the 8 from that side, multiply by 8 over here. This will become -18 plus 10k equals to -48. Our next step here would be to add 18 to both sides. Add 18, so we have 10k equals -30. Divide by 10, divide by 10, and we get k equals -3. So if there are any questions on that one, feel free to reach out and send me a quick email. But hopefully that one was fairly straightforward for you. In number 4, we are multiplying by a fraction when we distribute. So remember, when we do that, we have to do 4 times 3, the numerators times each other. So 12 over 9 times 2, which is 18, x minus 18 times 4 over 9. So this is 18 times 4 over 9. And if you didn't know how to do that, you could ultimately cancel out a 9 from both the numerator and the denominator, because 18 is 9 times 2. So when I simplify this, this is just going to be 2 times 4, which is 8. So this becomes 12 over 18 simplifies to 2 over 3x minus 8 equals 16x plus 7. So our next step here is to combine like terms. So I can change my top fraction. I can do minus 16x from both sides, minus 16x. 2/3 is really 4/6, so I can change that to minus 4/6 minus 1/6, which is 3/6x. Then I can add 8 to both sides, add 8 equals 15. 3/6 is really 1/2. When I divide 15 by 1/2, I get x equals 30. Because dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. So those are our examples of linear equations. 10 and 12 are examples of literal equations. So for these ones in 10 and 12, we're solving for a specific variable. So in 10, we're solving for a. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to circle what I'm solving for, so I can see that it's already fairly isolated. So my first step here should be to multiply the whole thing by 3 over 1, because this is being multiplied. So I multiply both sides by 3. That cancels this 1/3. And I have 3c equals a squared plus b. So my next step should be to subtract b from both sides. So I get 3c minus b equals a squared. And then I'm sure you're all with me on this one. Gotta take the square root, because we just had a lot of practice with this. So my answer would be plus or minus, or a equals plus or minus the square root of 3c minus b. And remember, I have the plus or minus there because when I multiply 2 negatives times each other, I get a positive. And when I multiply 2 positives together, I get a positive. So it can be both answers. All right. Number 12 is a little bit more complicated, but I'm solving for r. So I have r, and r. So my first step should be to get all the r's on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 2rs from both sides. And I can notice here that this is an rs and this is an rs. So this simplifies to be r minus 1rs minus 2rs, which is r minus 3rs, equals to 5. So now my greatest common factor in this binomial on the left side is r, so I can pull out an r. r times 1 minus 3s equals 5, and then I can divide both sides by 1 minus 3s. That cancels that, that cancels that. 1 minus 3s. So that is my answer. R equals 5 over 1 minus 3s. Okay. So then 14 through 20 were absolute value problems. So in this one, remember I have to create the two cases. Let's just see here. So I have to create the two cases because that accounts for whatever's inside the absolute value equaling to a potentially negative number, because my absolute value is the units away from 0, so she'll always be positive, but the stuff inside can actually be negative. So first step is to isolate the absolute value brackets. So I would add 4 to both sides. I get 9 times r plus 8 equals, that is negative 18. Divide both sides by 9, so I can cancel that out, divide by 9, and I get r plus 8 equals negative 2. So this is where I check in and see, can I solve this problem before I create the two cases and make a lot of work for myself. And this absolute value cannot equal a negative number, so my answer here would be no solution. So either one, you can write those out. In number 20, I'm going to start the same way. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, add 1. So then I have 1/2 times absolute value of 9 plus 3, 9a plus 3, sorry, equals 3a minus 6. And now I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, so I can cancel this out. So multiply this whole thing by 2, and I get the absolute value of 9a plus 3 equals 6a minus 12. Now I can create my two cases. One where nothing changes, I just drop the absolute value brackets, 9a plus 3 equals 6a minus 12. And the other one where I change all the signs. So I change all signs. So this is my negative case. So in this one, so this is the same, just drop the brackets, change all signs. So this would be 9a plus 3 equals minus 6a plus 12. And now I solve for both. Minus 6a, minus 6a, minus 3, minus 3. And I have 3a equals minus 15. Divide by 3, divide by 3. A equals minus 5. And this is different than the answer key. The answer key says positive 5, which is incorrect. So you should have gotten negative 5 here. On this side, I'm going to add 6a, minus 3, and I have 15a equals 9. Divide by 15, divide by 15. A equals 9 over 15, or a equals 3 over 5. And so what we didn't do during class time is check and see if these answers work. So we didn't plug them back in to see if it satisfies the problem. So if you notice on the answer sheet for number 20, it says no solution. And that's because when I plug negative 5 back into this problem, so if I take negative 5 and I plug it in for A here, I would get negative 30 minus 12, which equals negative 42. And I can't have a negative opposite an absolute value bracket, so this would not work. So to say that again, if I plug negative 5 in here for A, I would get negative 30 minus 12, which equals negative 42, which doesn't satisfy the absolute value equation. Same here with 3/5. If I was to plug 3/5 in for A, I would get 18 over 5, which is a little more than 3, and 3 minus 12 is still a negative number, so that wouldn't work either. So the correct answer for number 20 is when I plug these back in, it should always satisfy the absolute value equation. So the correct answer for 20 would be no solution. So that's why that's the way that it is on the answer key. Please reach out if you have any questions about the homework.